Every day we're nudged. A billboard tells us we're not enough without the newest sneakers. A commercial whispers that happiness is just one purchase away. Algorithms feed us endless distractions, keeping us scrolling, keeping us numb, keeping us in the loop. Each message is a quiet order. Consume, obey. Don't look up. Don't think too much. Above all, don't connect. Don't disturb the trance. Don't wake up. I saw it happen to a friend of mine. We used to talk for hours, unraveling every thread of the universe: life, death, love, meaning. Now, when I call, he sends a text. What's up? If I ask to meet, he says he's too busy, but his social media shows him binge-watching another show or clicking through endless reels. He's there, but not really. A ghost of himself, haunted by distractions. He's a product of the system, doing exactly what he's been trained to do: disconnect and consume. And then there's the woman at the self-checkout in the grocery store. She was frail and tired, her hands trembling as she tried to scan a can of soup. The machine beeped incessantly, rejecting her attempts. The line behind her grew restless. People glanced at their watches, sighed loudly, but no one helped. No one even made eye contact. She muttered under her breath, "Why don't people talk anymore?" Then she laughed, a bitter, hollow sound, as if answering her own question. We don't talk because we've been taught not to. We've been conditioned to forget how to connect with each other. And in doing so, we've forgotten how to connect with ourselves. The erosion happens slowly. It's not a sudden collapse. It's a slow death, a gradual retreat into isolation. It's not just the screens we stare at. It's the culture that pushes us further apart. It's the fear of being vulnerable with others, the fear of being judged, the fear that if we stop and look around, we might find that we're alone. So we turn away. We look down at our phones. We buy more stuff, trying to fill the void. The system doesn't just want us to consume, it needs us to consume. Because the more we consume, the more we're distracted. The more we're distracted, the less we question. And the less we question, the easier it is to control us. But control isn't perfect. There's always a crack, and that's where we come in. If we're going to break free from this cycle, it starts with one thing: connection. Real, honest, messy connection. Not through screens, but face to face, eye to eye, soul to soul. It doesn't have to be perfect. In fact, it never will be. But it's what we were meant for. I remember standing at a bus stop once, my mind racing as I checked my phone for the 1,000th time that morning. And then, out of nowhere, a man approached me. He was older, with wrinkles that told the story of a life lived fully. He didn't look at his phone. He looked at me, and he said, "You know, there's a lot of beauty in this world if you look for it." He didn't say much else, but that was enough. His words broke through the fog of my own distractions. For the first time that day, I looked up. I saw the trees, the sky, the people around me. I saw life. We've forgotten what it's like to see each other, to listen without an agenda, to talk without measuring each word, to just be in the presence of another person fully, without distraction. The noise of the world tells us that we're not enough unless we're constantly doing something, buying something, achieving something, proving something. But the truth is, we are enough just as we are. We are enough when we stop and listen, when we pause to connect with another soul. The deep loneliness that we sometimes feel isn't always a result of being alone, but a result of not truly connecting. We can be surrounded by people, even in a crowded room, and still feel isolated, as if we are drifting on an island in the middle of an ocean. It's the feeling of not being seen, of not being heard. It's the result of the system we live in, a system that fosters superficial relationships. We've all been there at some point, smiling at a colleague's joke, nodding along in a conversation, but inside you feel empty, like a mere spectator of your own life. It's not just the big moments where we feel this emptiness. It's in the small, everyday choices that erode our individuality. It's in the way we answer, "How are you?" without actually pausing to think about it. It's in the way we scroll past the faces of people who might need a kind word, simply because it's easier to move on. It's in the constant state of busyness we've convinced ourselves is necessary. We tell ourselves that we don't have time for deeper connections, but we make time for everything else. We make time to buy things we don't need, to follow trends that don't matter, to run in circles that lead nowhere. The hardest part of all of this is that it doesn't feel like anything is wrong. We've become so used to the routine of being plugged in that we don't recognize the damage it's causing. We're too busy chasing after the next thing to even notice that we're losing ourselves. The power of the system lies in this very fact. It doesn't demand anything obvious. It doesn't come in the form of an outright battle. It's a quiet, insidious erosion of who we are. Every purchase, every like on social media, every click, every swipe, these are the chains that keep us bound. But there's hope. Even within this system, there's always room for change. We don't have to wait for a grand epiphany. We don't need to overthrow the world. It starts with a shift in our own minds, our own hearts. It starts when we decide to reclaim our individuality. It starts when we choose to live in a way that is true to ourselves, not what we've been conditioned to be. It starts when we choose to see people again, really see them, not as background noise, but as fellow travelers on this journey. Every conversation, every smile, every touch is a step toward reclaiming our individuality, and it's a step toward breaking the cycle. But the erosion of individuality doesn't only happen gradually with subtle distractions. It's also a deliberate, methodical force that has been at work for generations, especially among the younger crowd. Take teenagers, for example. They wear the same clothes, listen to the same music, and have the same haircuts. They joke the same jokes, watch the same movies, and subscribe to the same trends. It's as if there's a uniformity that stifles personal expression, a mass conformity that dictates how they should look, talk, and behave. The system does not want young minds to explore their individuality. Instead, it manipulates them to fit a mold, to merge into the crowd, to belong. The New World Order seeks a population of people who fit neatly into boxes, who are easily predictable and controllable. And the younger generation, filled with the curiosity and energy of youth, becomes the perfect target. It's not just about fitting in, it's about losing yourself in the process. This mass manipulation turns teenagers into reflections of the world around them. But those reflections are only shallow versions of themselves. When you look at the rise of trends, from fashion to social media challenges, you see the system at work, using peer pressure, celebrity culture, and social validation to strip away the layers of individuality until there's nothing left but a hollow shell. It's a generation trained not to think for itself, but to follow orders, to consume, to imitate. It's a sad state of affairs when a teenager's most significant achievement is not discovering who they truly are, but copying the persona of someone else, someone they've never met, but who has been handpicked by the system to be their role model. And this is where we stand now. This uniformity is the prelude to chaos. As the system tightens its grip, as individuality fades away and all people become cogs in the same machine, a counterforce will inevitably arise. The New World chaos will emerge, not as a villain, but as a necessary response to restore balance. It will rise from the ashes of control, fueled by those who have had enough of living in the shadows of conformity. The New World chaos will not be about destroying the world, but about disrupting the monotony of mass production and reconnecting people to their true selves. It will challenge the status quo, but it will also offer freedom. The freedom to be individuals again. The freedom to think, act, and live authentically, without fear of judgment or the constant push to consume and obey. But for the new world chaos to rise, we need to recognize what has been taken from us. We need to realize that our individuality is worth fighting for. We need to look past the distractions and see each other as unique, beautiful souls who deserve to be heard and valued. Only then can we break free from the erosion of our true selves and usher in a new age of balance. The balance that can only come from embracing who we really are.